The mail-order groom took one look at Beatrice Grayson standing on the dusty platform of Marfa, Texas, turned on his heel, and walked straight back to the stagecoach without saying a single word. Beatrice stood frozen in her Sunday best dress, the blue calico she had spent weeks sewing by lamplight, watching the stage disappear in a cloud of desert dust as her future drove away with it. The year was 1883, and she had just become the laughingstock of the entire town. The platform emptied quickly as neighbors who had gathered to witness her happy occasion scattered like tumbleweeds, their pitying glances burning worse than the unforgiving West Texas sun. Beatrice clutched her parasol so tightly her knuckles turned white, determined not to cry in public. She had sold nearly everything to pay for that man's passage from Pennsylvania, had written letters for 6 months believing his flowery words about wanting a simple life with a good woman. One look at her sun-weathered face and calloused hands, and he had decided she was not worth even a polite greeting. She was 24 years old, owned a struggling cattle ranch 5 miles outside town, and had just humiliated herself in front of everyone she knew. The whispers would spread through Marfa faster than wildfire through dry grass. Poor Beatrice Grayson, too plain and too poor to keep even a desperate mail-order groom. Miss Grayson. The voice was deep and gentle, carrying a hint of concern that made her throat tighten dangerously. She blinked hard against the tears and turned to find Lucas Morgan standing a respectful distance away, his worn hat in his hands. Lucas worked as a ranch hand for the Henderson spread, the largest cattle operation in the county. She had seen him around town, always polite, always keeping to himself. He was probably 26 or 27, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of aged whiskey. Mr. Morgan. She kept her voice steady through sheer force of will. I appreciate your concern, but I am perfectly fine. With respect, madam, you do not look fine. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the wooden platform. That man was a fool. I have been standing here trying to work up the courage to say something for the last 5 minutes, and that is the truth of it. Something in his honest, straightforward manner broke through her humiliation. You witnessed that whole disaster. I did. Lucas met her eyes without flinching. I came to town to pick up supplies for the Henderson ranch, saw the stage come in, saw that coward take one look at the finest woman in West Texas and prove himself unworthy of her. He twisted his hat in his hands, a nervous gesture that seemed at odds with his confident words. His loss is my greatest fortune today, because now I can finally tell you what I have been wanting to say for near about a year. Beatrice stared at him, her embarrassment momentarily forgotten. What are you talking about? I am talking about the fact that I have been half in love with you since the day I saw you break up a fight between 2 of your ranch hands outside the general store last summer. You stepped right between 2 men twice your size and told them if they wanted to act like children, they could find employment elsewhere. Then you marched into that store with your head high and bought supplies like nothing had happened. Lucas took a breath, his weathered face coloring slightly. I am talking about how I have watched you keep that ranch running after your father passed, working sunrise to sunset, never complaining, never giving up. I am talking about how I think you are the strongest, most beautiful woman I have ever known, and if you will give me a chance, I would like to prove that not all men are foolish enough to walk away from something precious. The carefully constructed walls around Beatrice's heart cracked. You do not even know me. Then let me learn. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. Let me help you with that ranch. Let me show you what it means to have a partner who will not run when things get hard. I know I am just a ranch hand without much to my name, but I am honest, I work hard, and I promise you I will never make you regret giving me a chance. Why? The word came out as barely a whisper. Why would you want someone like me? I am not pretty, I am not refined, and I apparently cannot even keep a mail-order groom who was desperate enough to answer my advertisement. Lucas reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently touched her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. You are wrong about every single one of those things. You are beautiful in the way that matters, in your strength and your spirit and your determination. You are refined where it counts, in your kindness and your integrity. And that man who left was not desperate. He was a fool looking for something easy, something he could control. He took one look at a woman with fire in her soul and ran scared. That tells me everything I need to know about him and nothing about you except that you deserve better. A tear escaped despite her best efforts, trailing down her dusty cheek. Lucas brushed it away with his thumb, the gesture so tender it made her heart ache. I do not need charity, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Good, because I am not offering any. I am asking if you will let me court you properly. Let me take you to dinner at the hotel. Let me come by your ranch and help with the work. Let me prove that I mean every word I am saying. He smiled, a slow, genuine expression that transformed his serious face. And if after a while you decide I am not what you want, I will accept that. But give me the chance to try. Beatrice looked into his earnest face and made a decision that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. All right. You can come by tomorrow morning. We have a fence down on the north pasture and 3 horses that need shoeing. If you still want to court me after a full day of hard labor in the Texas heat, we can discuss dinner. Lucas's smile widened into a grin. I will be there at sunrise. And Miss Grayson. I am not afraid of hard work, especially not when it means spending time with you. He settled his hat back on his head, gave her a small bow that was somehow both respectful and playful, and walked toward the livery stable where his horse was presumably waiting. Beatrice watched him go, her heart doing strange things in her chest. She had come to town expecting to meet her future husband and had her dreams crushed in the most public way possible. Instead, she was going home with the tentative hope that maybe, just maybe, something better was waiting for her. The ride back to her ranch gave her time to think. The Grayson ranch was modest by most standards, 200 acres of scrubland and prairie grass with a small herd of cattle and a handful of horses. Her father had built it from nothing, working himself to death trying to make it profitable. When he died 2 years ago, everyone expected Beatrice to sell and move back east where she had family. Instead, she had rolled up her sleeves and kept going, determined to honor his memory by making his dream succeed. It had been brutally hard. She had 2 ranch hands, old-timers named Pete and Charlie who had worked for her father and stayed on out of loyalty. They did their best, but they were getting on in years, and the work was punishing. Beatrice handled everything from branding to bookkeeping, from mending fences to breaking horses. She had learned to shoot, to rope, to do everything a ranch required. She had also learned that being a woman alone in the cattle business meant being taken advantage of at every turn. Buyers offered her less than they would pay a man. Suppliers charged her more. Other ranchers tried to encroach on her land and water rights. The mail-order groom had seemed like a practical solution. She needed help, and she was lonely in a way that went bone deep. The idea of a partnership, someone to share the burden and maybe eventually build something more, had appealed to her practical nature. She had not expected romance or grand passion. She had expected mutual respect and shared goals. What Lucas Morgan was offering terrified her, because it was everything she had convinced herself she did not deserve. The ranch house came into view as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the desert in shades of orange and gold. It was a simple structure, wood and stone, with a wide porch her father had built so they could sit outside on hot evenings. Beatrice guided her horse to the small barn, unsaddled and brushed her down, then trudged to the house. Pete and Charlie were nowhere to be seen, probably out checking on the herd or finishing up the day's work. Inside, the house was quiet and cool, thick adobe walls keeping out the worst of the heat. Beatrice changed out of her good dress into her work clothes, practical trousers and a cotton shirt that scandalized the church ladies but made ranch work possible. She stood in front of her small mirror, really looking at herself for the first time in months. Her face was tanned from hours in the sun, fine lines beginning to form at the corners of her eyes. Her hands were rough, nails short and practical. Her brown hair, which she had carefully curled that morning, was already escaping its pins. She was thin from hard work and irregular meals, all angles and lean muscle. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who worked too hard and worried too much. This was what the mail-order groom had rejected. This was what Lucas Morgan claimed to find beautiful. She did not know whether to believe him or to guard her heart against another disappointment. Sleep did not come easily that night. Beatrice lay in her narrow bed, listening to the sounds of the desert night, the distant howl of coyotes and the whisper of wind through the scrub brush. She thought about Lucas Morgan's words, his steady gaze, the gentle way he had touched her face. She thought about the humiliation of the afternoon and the unexpected gift of his declaration. She thought about tomorrow, and whether he would actually show up or if this had all been some elaborate, cruel joke. When the first light of dawn crept through her window, she was already awake. Beatrice dressed quickly, braided her hair, and went to start coffee. Pete and Charlie arrived at the kitchen door as the sun broke over the horizon, looking surprised to see her up and moving. "Thought you might sleep in after yesterday," Pete said carefully. He was in his 60s, weathered and kind, with a white mustache and eyes that missed nothing. "Heard what happened in town. That man was a damned fool, pardon my language." "I appreciate that, Pete." Beatrice poured coffee for all three of them. "But we have work to do. That fence will not fix itself." "Got plenty of wire in the barn," Charlie added. He was shorter than Pete, stocky and strong despite his age. "We can head out after breakfast. Actually, we might have some help today." Beatrice tried to keep her voice casual. "Lucas Morgan said he would come by this morning." The two men exchanged glances. "Lucas Morgan from the Henderson place?" Pete asked. "He is a good worker. Heard Henderson tried to make him foreman, but he turned it down, said he did not want to boss other men around. He is coming to help with the fence. He is coming to court me." The words felt strange on her tongue. "Or rather, he asked permission to court me, and I told him if he survived a day of work here, we would discuss it." Pete's weathered face split into a smile. "Now that is interesting. I have seen the way that young man looks at you when you are in town. Did not think he had the courage to speak up." "Neither did I." Beatrice sipped her coffee, the hot bitter liquid helping to settle her nerves. But apparently yesterday's disaster gave him the push he needed. They were finishing breakfast when they heard the sound of hooves outside. Beatrice's heart jumped into her throat. She forced herself to move calmly to the door, not wanting to appear too eager. Lucas was dismounting from a sturdy bay gelding, dressed in work clothes and carrying a bedroll and saddlebags that suggested he had come prepared for a long day. "Good morning, Miss Grayson." He smiled at her, and she noticed he had shaved and his hair was damp, like he had made an effort to clean up despite the early hour. "I hope I am not too early. You are right on time." She stepped out onto the porch, very aware of Pete and Charlie watching from inside. "I was not sure you would come. I gave you my word." He tied his horse to the rail and walked toward her, And I meant everything I said yesterday. I am here to help with whatever you need and to prove that I am serious about courting you. The fence is not going to be easy work. The posts are rotted through in places, which means digging new holes in hard ground. It is hot, dirty, and thankless. Then we better get started before the day gets any hotter. Lucas's smile never wavered. Lead the way, Miss Grayson. They rode out to the north pasture with Pete and Charlie, the four of them loaded down with tools and wire and fresh fence posts. The damaged section was worse than Beatrice had feared. Nearly 50 feet of fence line down and cattle tracks suggesting some of her herd had wandered through. She sent Charlie and Pete to round up the strays while she and Lucas tackled the fence. Working beside him, Beatrice discovered that everything Pete had said about Lucas Morgan was true. He was a tireless worker, attacking the hard caliche soil with steady determination, never complaining when the work was difficult or when the sun climbed higher and turned the day into an oven. He also talked while he worked, asking her questions about the ranch, about her plans for the future, about her father and how she had learned the cattle business. My father believed in teaching by doing, Beatrice said as they stretched wire between two new posts. From the time I was old enough to sit a horse, I was riding with him, learning the land, learning the herd. My mother died when I was young, so it was just the two of us. I think he always saw me as the son he never had. He must have been proud of you. Lucas hammered staples to secure the wire, his movements efficient and sure. Not many people could do what you have done, man or woman. Proud and worried. Beatrice moved to the next section, Lucas following with the wire. He knew what I would be up against, trying to run this place alone. That is why he made me promise to find a partner, someone to help share the load. Is that why you sent for a mail-order groom? Partly. She appreciated his directness, the way he asked hard questions without judgment. Also, because I was lonely. This life is not easy, and doing it alone is harder than I ever imagined. I thought a marriage of convenience, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals, made sense. What about love? Lucas straightened up, wiping sweat from his forehead. Did not you want that too? Beatrice met his eyes across the fence line. I learned not to hope for things that seemed impossible. Love is for fairy tales and dime novels. Real life requires practical solutions. I disagree. He walked around the fence to stand beside her. I think love is the most practical thing there is. When two people genuinely care for each other, they will work harder, sacrifice more, and weather any storm together. A marriage without love is just a business arrangement, and business arrangements fall apart when times get tough. That is very romantic of you. I am a romantic man. He said it without embarrassment or apology. My parents were married for 30 years before my father died. They were partners in every sense, but they were also deeply in love. I saw how they looked at each other, how they worked together, how they supported each other through good times and bad. That is what I want for myself. That is what I think you deserve too. Something in Beatrice's chest loosened, a knot she had not realized she was carrying. What if I do not know how to do that? What if I am too practical, too hardened by this life to be the kind of woman you deserve? Lucas reached out and took her hand, his palm rough and warm against hers. Then we will figure it out together. Love is not something you have to know how to do perfectly from the start. It is something you build day by day, choice by choice. And Beatrice, I am already halfway there. I have been watching you for a year, admiring your strength and your courage and your determination. Spending time with you like this, learning who you are beyond what I have observed from a distance, I am only falling deeper. Her name in his mouth sounded like a prayer. No one had said her given name with such tenderness in years. You should call me B. My father did. B. He smiled, and the warmth in his expression made her feel like she was standing too close to a fire. "I like that. It fits you. Strong and hardworking, but also golden and sweet when given the chance. Now you are definitely being romantic. I warned you." He squeezed her hand gently before releasing it and returning to work. "You should prepare yourself. I plan to be relentlessly romantic in my pursuit of you." They worked through the morning, finishing the fence just before noon. Pete and Charlie returned with the stray cattle, driving them back through the repaired section. The four of them rode back to the ranch house, hot and exhausted and covered in dust. "You all should wash up at the pump," Beatrice said. "I will get lunch started. Let me help." Lucas dismounted and followed her toward the house. "I am a decent cook, learned out of necessity on long cattle drives." Together, they prepared a simple meal of beans and cornbread with bacon, moving around the small kitchen with surprising ease. Lucas seemed to have an instinct for knowing what she needed before she asked, handing her ingredients, stirring pots, slicing bread with the same competent efficiency he had shown with the fence. "You are making yourself dangerously useful," Beatrice observed as she set the table. "A man who can work hard and cook is a rare find. Just wait until you taste my biscuits," he grinned at her. "That is when you will really be impressed." Lunch was a lively affair, with Pete and Charlie telling stories about cattle drives and wild horses, Lucas adding his own tales from his years working ranches across Texas. Beatrice found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. Lucas had a gift for storytelling, animating his words with gestures and expressions that brought the scenes to life. After lunch, Lucas insisted on helping with the afternoon chores. They fed the horses, checked on the herd again, and repaired a loose board on the barn door. The sun was beginning its descent when they finally finished, the day's work complete. "I should head back to Henderson's place," Lucas said reluctantly as they stood by his horse. "I have duties there tomorrow morning. But B, can I come back? Maybe take you to dinner in town this Saturday." "You survived the day." Beatrice tried to keep her tone light despite the flutter in her chest. "I suppose I have to keep my word about discussing dinner. Is that a yes?" She looked up at him, at his dust-covered face and hopeful expression, and felt something shift inside her. "Yes." Saturday evening. "But Lucas, I need you to understand something. I am not good at this. I do not know how to be courted or how to act like a proper lady. If you are expecting someone soft and feminine who will bat her eyelashes and need protecting, you are going to be disappointed." "Good thing that is not what I want." He mounted his horse but leaned down, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. "I want exactly who you are, B. Grayson. Your strength, your independence, your fire. I do not want to change you or protect you from the world. I want to stand beside you and face it together. Can you believe that?" She wanted to. God, how she wanted to. "I am trying. That is all I ask." He touched the brim of his hat in a small salute. "I will see you Saturday evening, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock." She watched him ride away, her emotions a tangled mess of hope and fear, and something that might have been the beginning of love. The next few days passed in a blur of work and anticipation. Beatrice found her thoughts drifting to Lucas at odd moments, remembering the way he smiled, the sound of his laugh, the gentle strength in his hands. She caught herself taking extra care with her appearance, then scolding herself for being foolish. She was a rancher, not some delicate flower who needed to primp and preen. But Saturday evening found her standing in front of her mirror again, this time wearing her second best dress, a deep green calico that brought out the hazel in her eyes. She had washed her hair and left it loose, falling in waves past her shoulders. She felt ridiculous and hopeful and terrified all at once. Lucas arrived exactly at 6, riding up to the house in clean clothes with his hair combed and a bouquet of wildflowers in his hand. "For you," he said, handing them over with a slight flush on his weathered cheeks. "I picked them this afternoon. They are not fancy, but they reminded me of you, beautiful in a wild, untamed way." Beatrice buried her face in the flowers to hide her expression. "Thank you, they are lovely." The ride into Marfa was pleasant, the evening air cooling as the sun set. Lucas kept up a steady stream of conversation, telling her about his week, asking about hers, making her laugh with observations about the quirks of the men he worked with. He had an easy way about him that made her relax, made her forget to be nervous. The hotel dining room was the nicest restaurant in Marfa, which was not saying much but still represented a significant gesture. The owner, Mrs. Patterson, showed them to a table by the window with a knowing smile. "Nice to see you out, Miss Grayson. Mr. Morgan, you take good care of her now." "That is my intention, madam." Lucas held Beatrice's chair for her, a gesture that would have seemed pretentious from another man but felt natural from him. Over dinner, steak and potatoes that were actually quite good, they talked about everything and nothing. Lucas told her about growing up in Kansas, about losing his father to a farming accident and his mother to illness a year later, about drifting south looking for work and finding he had a talent for cattle. Beatrice shared her own story, her lonely childhood, her father's ambition and early death, her determination to prove she could succeed where others expected her to fail. "Why did you turn down the foreman position at Henderson's?" Beatrice asked as they finished their meal. "Pete said Henderson wanted you to take the job." Lucas was quiet for a moment, his fingers toying with his coffee cup. "Because I do not want to work for someone else my whole life. I have been saving money, learning everything I can about running a ranch. Eventually, I want my own place, modest but mine. A foreman position would pay better, but it would also tie me to Henderson's operation indefinitely. I decided I would rather work as a hand, save my money, and keep my freedom to pursue my own dreams." "What are those dreams?" He looked up at her, his amber eyes intense. "A few weeks ago I would have said my own ranch, a small herd, maybe a family someday if I was lucky enough to find the right woman. Now," he reached across the table, palm up in invitation, "now my dreams are changing. Now I am dreaming about waking up every morning on a certain ranch outside town, working beside a certain strong-willed woman, building something together instead of alone." Beatrice placed her hand in his, her heart thundering. "Lucas, this is moving very fast. Is it? I have loved you from a distance for a year. Now that I have the chance to love you up close, I do not want to waste time pretending I feel less than I do." He laced their fingers together. "But I will go as slow as you need. I will court you properly, give you time to trust me, prove that I am serious. Just tell me I have a chance. You have more than a chance." The words came out barely above a whisper. "You have me scared half to death because I want this so much it hurts. Then we are in the same boat." His smile was tender and a little rueful. "I am terrified you will wake up one day and realize you can do better than a drifting ranch hand with more dreams than money. That is not going to happen. Then we will figure this out together." They left the restaurant walking close together, not quite touching but aware of each other in a way that made Beatrice's skin tingle. The night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on black velvet. Lucas walked her to where their horses were tied outside the livery stable but did not immediately move to mount up. Can I kiss you?" The question was soft, respectful, giving her every opportunity to refuse. She answered by stepping closer, tilting her face up to his. Lucas cupped her cheek with one hand, his touch gentle, and lowered his mouth to hers. The kiss was sweet and searching, asking questions and promising answers. Beatrice felt it all the way to her toes, a warmth that had nothing to do with the Texas heat and everything to do with the man holding her like she was precious. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. "I am in love with you, B. Grayson. I know it is too soon to say it, but it is the truth. I have been falling for a year, and now that I know you, really know you, I am all the way gone. Lucas." She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the intensity of her own feelings. "I do not know how to do this. I do not know how to be vulnerable or soft or any of the things women are supposed to be. Be exactly who you are. That is all I need." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. "Let me love you the way you deserve to be loved. Let me prove that you are worthy of everything good." "I am trying." She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. "But you have to be patient with me. I have spent so long protecting myself. I do not know how to let someone in. I have got all the time in the world." He kissed her again, longer this time, deeper, until Beatrice felt like she was melting into him. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were flushed and smiling. "But I should get you home before I forget to be a gentleman." The ride back to the ranch was quiet but comfortable, their horses walking side by side under the stars. When they reached her house, Lucas dismounted and helped her down, his hands lingering at her waist. "Can I see you tomorrow?" he asked. "I have the afternoon free." "Yes." She did not even pretend to think about it. "Come for lunch. I will make those biscuits you were bragging about so I can judge if they are as good as you claim." Challenge accepted. He grinned, then sobered. "Thank you for tonight, for giving me a chance. I know I am asking you to trust when you have every reason not to, and I do not take that lightly. You have not given me a reason not to trust you yet." She reached up and touched his face, feeling the slight rasp of stubble under her palm. "Do not start now. Never." He turned his head and kissed her palm, the gesture making her shiver. "Sleep well, B." She watched him ride away, her hand pressed to her chest where her heart was doing complicated acrobatics. Pete appeared on the porch, smoking his pipe, a knowing smile on his weathered face. "That young man has it bad for you," he observed. "I know." Beatrice climbed the porch steps and leaned against the railing. "Pete, am I being foolish, letting myself hope after what happened with the mail-order groom, that coward?" Pete snorted. "He did you a favor. Lucas Morgan is worth 10 of him. I have been around long enough to recognize a good man when I see one, and that boy is genuine. He is not looking for easy or comfortable. He is looking for a partner, and he is smart enough to recognize one when he sees her. What if I am not enough? Now that is just foolish talk." Pete pointed his pipe stem at her. "You are exactly enough. You are strong and smart and capable. Any man would be lucky to have you, and Lucas knows it. Stop second-guessing yourself and let yourself be happy." Beatrice hugged the old cowboy, taking comfort in his solid presence. "When did you get so wise?" "I have always been wise. You are just finally listening." He patted her shoulder. "Now get some sleep. Something tells me you are going to want to look your best for tomorrow's lunch." Lucas became a regular presence at the ranch over the following weeks. He came whenever his duties at Henderson's allowed, helping with everything from breaking horses to mending tack to the endless task of maintaining fences and buildings. He moved through her life with the steady certainty of sunrise, making himself indispensable not through grand gestures but through 1,000 small acts of service. He also courted her with a romance that took her breath away. He brought her wildflowers. He left notes tucked into places he knew she would find them, simple messages that made her smile. He held her hand as they walked, kissed her under the stars, and told her every single day that she was beautiful. He made her feel seen in a way she never had before, like he looked at her and recognized something precious. Beatrice found herself opening up in ways that terrified her. She told Lucas about her fears, about the nights when she lay awake wondering if she would lose the ranch, about the desperate loneliness that had driven her to send for a mail-order groom. She told him about feeling like she was never quite enough, never pretty enough or feminine enough or soft enough to be the kind of woman men wanted. Lucas listened to all of it, holding her close, and then systematically dismantled every single fear with logic and love. "You are more than enough," he told her one evening as they sat on her porch watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of fire. "You are everything I have ever wanted and things I did not know enough to dream about. Your strength does not make you less feminine. It makes you remarkable. And any man who cannot see that does not deserve you. How did I get so lucky?" She leaned against his shoulder, breathing in the scent of him, leather and sage and something uniquely Lucas. "I think I am the lucky one." He kissed the top of her head. "I get to love you, and somehow, miraculously, you are starting to love me back." She was. That was the terrifying truth. Somewhere between that first humiliating day on the train platform and this perfect evening, Beatrice had fallen completely in love with Lucas Morgan. She loved his kindness and his strength, his humor and his honesty, his unwavering belief that they could build something beautiful together. She loved the way he looked at her like she hung the moon, the way he touched her like she might break, but also trusted her to be strong. She loved the man he was and the future she could see when she looked at him. "I do love you," she said softly. "I am absolutely terrified of it, but I do." Lucas pulled back to look at her, his eyes searching her face. "Say that again." "I love you, Lucas Morgan." It came easier the second time. "I love you and I want this, whatever this is, whatever it can become." He kissed her then, deep and passionate, pouring everything he felt into the connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucas was smiling so wide it looked like it might split his face. "Marry me," he said. "I know it is fast. I know you have every reason to be cautious, but I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it. Marry me and let me be your partner in everything. Let me help you build this ranch into something amazing. Let me wake up beside you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. Just marry me." Beatrice's heart was in her throat. This was everything she wanted and everything she feared. But looking at Lucas, at his open, honest face and the love shining in his eyes, she found her answer. "Yes." The word came out strong and sure. "Yes, I will marry you." Lucas let out a whoop of joy that probably scared every cow within a mile and swept her up in his arms, spinning her around until she was laughing and dizzy. When he set her down, he kissed her again, then dropped to one knee. "I do not have a ring yet," he said, holding both her hands. "But I promise you will have one. I promise you will have everything I can possibly give you. I promise to love you and support you and stand beside you through everything life throws at us. I promise to be the partner you deserve, in work and in life and in love. I promise to never walk away, never give up, never stop choosing you every single day." Tears were streaming down Beatrice's face, but she was smiling. "I promise to try to let you in, to let you help, to trust that you mean what you say. I promise to work beside you and build a life with you. I promise to love you even when I am scared, even when things are hard, even when I do not know what I am doing. I promise to choose you too." They held each other as the stars came out, making plans and dreaming dreams. Lucas would give his notice at Henderson's. They would marry as soon as possible, nothing fancy, just a simple ceremony with friends as witnesses. They would combine his savings with her ranch, reinvesting in the herd, fixing up the house, building the operation into something sustainable. They would work together, live together, love together. 3 weeks later, Beatrice Grayson became Beatrice Morgan in a simple ceremony at the church in Marfa. She wore a new dress, white with blue flowers, and carried a bouquet of wildflowers. Lucas wore a new suit that made him look impossibly handsome and uncomfortable in equal measure. Pete and Charlie stood as witnesses, along with a handful of friends from town. The same people who had witnessed her humiliation on the train platform now watched her marry a man who looked at her like she was the answer to every prayer. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas kissed her with such tenderness and joy that Beatrice felt something fundamental shift in her understanding of what was possible. This was what love looked like. This was what it meant to be chosen, to be cherished, to be seen and valued exactly as she was. The celebration afterward was simple but joyful, held at the ranch with food and music and dancing under the stars. Lucas danced with his bride, holding her close, whispering promises and endearments that made her blush and laugh. "I love you, Mrs. Morgan," he murmured against her ear as they swayed to the music. "I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this." "I could never regret you," she pulled back to look at him. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. That man who walked away gave me you, and I will never stop being grateful for his cowardice. His loss truly was my greatest fortune." Lucas smiled and kissed her softly. Now and forever. Their wedding night was sweet and passionate, a discovery of each other that felt both new and somehow inevitable. Lucas was gentle and patient, making sure Beatrice felt loved and cherished. Afterward, lying tangled together in her bed that was now their bed, Beatrice felt a peace she had never known before. This was home. This was belonging. This was love. The months that followed were a revelation. Working alongside Lucas was nothing like working alone or even with hired hands. He was a true partner, taking initiative, making decisions, shouldering half the burden without being asked. They fell into rhythms and patterns, learning each other's strengths and compensating for weaknesses. The ranch began to thrive under their combined effort. Lucas proved to be skilled with horses, breaking and training with a patience that yielded excellent results. Word spread, and soon they were getting requests from neighboring ranches to work with difficult animals. It became a valuable secondary income. Beatrice focused on the cattle operation, her eye for good breeding stock and grazing management showing results in the health and size of their herd. They also learned each other in deeper ways. Beatrice discovered that Lucas had nightmares sometimes, residual trauma from his years of loss and drifting. She learned to hold him through the bad nights, offering comfort and presence until the demons faded. Lucas learned that Beatrice had moments of crippling self-doubt, times when the weight of responsibility threatened to crush her. He learned to recognize the signs and gently redirect her, reminding her of how far they had come and how much she was capable of. They fought occasionally, both strong-willed people with opinions about how things should be done. But they learned to fight fair, to listen and compromise, to remember that they were on the same side. Every disagreement resolved made them stronger, more confident in their ability to weather difficulties together. The first year of their marriage passed in a blur of hard work and deep happiness. They expanded the herd, repaired and improved buildings, added 2 new ranch hands to help with the growing operation. They also grew closer, their initial passion deepening into something more profound. Beatrice found herself unable to imagine life without Lucas. His steady presence and unwavering love had become as essential as breathing. The second year brought new joys. Beatrice discovered she was pregnant in the spring, and Lucas's reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He swept her into his arms, tears streaming down his weathered face, and held her like she was made of spun glass. "We are having a baby," he kept repeating, wonder in his voice. "We are going to be parents. Are you happy?" She needed to hear him say it, needed confirmation that this was something he truly wanted. Happy does not begin to cover it. He pulled back to frame her face with his hands. I am amazed. I am grateful. I am so in love with you I can barely think straight. You are giving me everything I have ever dreamed of and more. A home, a life, a future, and now a child. How could I be anything but ecstatic? The pregnancy was not easy. Beatrice hated feeling weak and incapable, chafed at Lucas's insistence that she take things easy. They fought about it more than once. Lucas worried about her health and the baby, Beatrice determined to pull her weight. I am pregnant, not an invalid, she snapped one afternoon when he tried to stop her from lifting a saddle. I know that. Lucas's jaw was tight with frustration and fear. But you are carrying our child, and I will not risk losing either of you because you are too stubborn to accept help. I have been doing this work my entire life. And now you have someone to share the load. Please. He gentled his tone, stepping close. Let me do this. Let me take care of you. It is not about you being weak. It is about me loving you so much I cannot stand the thought of anything happening to you. His vulnerability broke through her anger. I am scared, she admitted. Scared that if I stop being useful, if I stop working, you will realize you do not need me. That is never going to happen. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. I do not love you because of what you do. I love you because of who you are. You could never lift another bale of hay or mend another fence, and I would still be crazy about you. Please believe that. She did, or she was learning to. The fears ran deep, but so did the love. Their son was born on a crisp autumn morning, arriving with a lusty cry that announced his presence to the world. Lucas was there through all of it, holding Beatrice's hand, supporting her through the pain, tears streaming down his face when the baby was finally placed in her arms. He is perfect, Beatrice whispered, looking down at the tiny red face. Lucas, look at him. We made this. You are amazing. Lucas kissed her forehead, then carefully touched his son's tiny hand, watching in wonder as miniature fingers wrapped around his own. I love you so much, both of you. They named him James, after Beatrice's father, and from the moment he drew breath, he had both his parents wrapped around his tiny fingers. Lucas proved to be a natural father, patient and gentle, equally comfortable changing diapers or soothing midnight cries. He took over more of the ranch work during the early months, insisting Beatrice focus on recovering and bonding with their son. Watching him with James, Beatrice fell even more in love with her husband. He sang silly songs while bathing the baby, made up elaborate stories during feedings, and could be found at all hours just staring at their son with an expression of awed devotion. I never knew I could love something this much, he told her one night as they lay in bed, James sleeping peacefully in his cradle beside them. It is almost frightening how much I love him, how much I love you. I know what you mean. Beatrice nestled closer to her husband. Sometimes I look at this life we have built, at you and James, and I am overwhelmed by how close I came to missing it. If that mail-order groom had not walked away, if you had not found the courage to speak up, none of this would exist. Fate or fortune or God's providence, whatever you want to call it, I am grateful for all of it. Lucas kissed her softly, even the hard parts, because they led us here. The years flowed by, marked by the rhythm of ranch life and the growth of their family. When James was 3, they had a daughter they named Sarah, who had her mother's determination and her father's gentle heart. 2 years after that came another son, Thomas, who was cheerful and adventurous from birth. The house that had once seemed too large and empty now rang with children's laughter and the chaos of family life. The ranch prospered beyond their initial dreams. Their reputation for quality cattle and well-trained horses spread throughout West Texas and beyond. They were able to buy additional land, expand their herd, and build a real house to replace the original modest structure. Through it all, Lucas and Beatrice worked side by side, their partnership deepening with each passing season. There were hard times too. Droughts that tested their resources and their faith. Illnesses that scared them half to death. Markets that crashed and left them scrambling. But they weathered every storm together, their love and commitment never wavering. In the dark times, they held each other up. In the good times, they celebrated together. On their 10th anniversary, Lucas took Beatrice back to town for dinner at the hotel, leaving the children with Pete and Charlie, who were now semi-retired but still living on the ranch in a cabin Lucas had built for them. "I cannot believe it has been 10 years, Beatrice said as they walked into the same dining room where they had shared their first meal together. "It feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once. The best 10 years of my life." Lucas held her chair, then sat across from her, reaching for her hands. "Do you remember what I told you that first day on the train platform? You said a lot of things that day. I said his loss was my greatest fortune. That coward who walked away gave me the opportunity to tell you what I had been too afraid to say for a year. He gave me you." Lucas smiled, his amber eyes warm with love and memory. "I have never stopped being grateful for his cowardice and my courage. I have never stopped being amazed that you said yes. I have never regretted it." Beatrice squeezed his hands. "Not for a single moment. You have given me everything I never knew I needed. Love, partnership, a family, a life I could never have built alone. You saw me when I felt invisible. You loved me when I felt unlovable. You stayed when everyone else walked away. I will always stay." He brought her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles. "That is the easiest promise I have ever made. Loving you is the simplest, most natural thing I have ever done. You are my home, Bea. Wherever you are, that is where I belong." They ate and talked and laughed, sharing memories and dreams, marveling at how much life they had lived together in a decade. After dinner, they walked through town hand in hand, not ready to go home just yet. "Do you ever think about that day?" Beatrice asked as they passed the train station. "When everything changed, all the time." Lucas pulled her close, wrapping his arm around her waist. "I think about how terrified I was to speak up, how sure I was that you would reject me. I think about the look on your face when he walked away, and how angry it made me that anyone could be so blind. I think about taking a chance and having it pay off in ways I never imagined possible. I think about it too." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I think about how I felt so humiliated and worthless, and then you appeared and made me feel like the most precious thing in the world. I think about how close I came to giving up on love and happiness, and how glad I am that I did not." They stood there on the platform, in the exact spot where their story had begun, holding each other as the stars came out overhead. The mail-order groom who had walked away was long forgotten, his name and face lost to memory. What remained was the love they had built together, solid and enduring, tested by time and proven true. "Come on," Lucas said eventually, tugging her toward their horses. "Let us go home to our children and our ranch and our life. Let us go home together." They rode back under the vast Texas sky, past land they had worked and shaped together, toward the house they had built and the family they had created. As they crested the final hill and saw the lights of home spread before them, Beatrice felt a contentment so profound it brought tears to her eyes. This was the life she had dreamed of, but never believed possible. This was the love she had given up hope of finding. This was the partner she had needed and the family she had yearned for. All of it had come from a moment of humiliation transformed into opportunity, a coward's rejection turned into a brave man's declaration. Lucas had been right that first day. The mail-order groom's loss had been their greatest fortune. From the ashes of disappointment, they had built something beautiful and true. They had built a love story for the ages, simple and profound, tested and proven. They had built a life, and it was everything.